Alright, so for this last chapter, in chapter 22, we're going to review rehabilitation and the ability to allow rehabilitation and reconditioning to allow an athlete to return back to their sport safely after they received an injury. And it provides, in the textbook, they provide a guideline for how an athlete can safely return. And a lot of times it's going to be based on the three different healing phases within tissues. So the first one is inflammatory response phase, the fibromagic repair phase, and the maturation remodeling phase. My apologies. And so it's important to make sure that we work with the athlete to ensure that we are properly bringing them back in. Because, say, for example, they're in that first phase of tissue repair, and we allow them to do something that's a little too harsh, we could injure them and even could cause permanent damage for them as well. And so there's a whole different team that can be involved in this. They call it a multiple disciplinary team, and it can include people like athletic trainers, physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches, a lot of other people as well that are involved in ensuring that an athlete is healthy and ensuring that they are reconditioning them back into their sport. So there's two different types of injuries that are focused in this chapter: macro trauma, which is like fractures, sprains, dislocations, and micro trauma, which is usually like stress fractures, tendonitis, shin splints, stuff like that. And so usually what we focus on to recondition is we focus on their strength and endurance, bringing that back, ensuring that there is full flexibility and range of motion around the joint or area that was injured, proprioception and neuromuscular control, so being able to balance and re-coordinate themselves in that joint, because a lot of times when we injure certain joints or areas, they can become unstable and unbalanced. Cardiorespiratory fitness, so using any non-weight bearing modalities such as swimming, cycling, things like that, and then introducing them to their sport specific skills. So gradually reintroducing exercises that they use within their sport, like jumping, sprinting, things like that. And so one of the first things that the chapter highlights is different types of exercises known as open and closed kinetic chain exercises. And this is both for upper and lower body exercises. And so open kinetic is essentially isolating a specific area, joint, or muscle group. And so it's good for addressing specific weakness. So an example could be a hamstring tear. So once the athlete is starting to heal and getting their strength back, we want to definitely ensure that we're involving open kinetic exercises that involve their hamstring in order to re-strengthen their hamstring. Another example is leg extension to strengthen the quads. And so this can also help us ensure that we're not stressing other joints around the area as well. Closed kinetic exercises are known as functional exercises, so squat, deadlift, bench, things like that. So they're gonna allow for overall strength, but also they're good because they increase stability and coordination within the athlete. So like I said, an example is squats, which are used to engage multiple lower and core muscle groups for the movement that are relevant to the sport's performance. And so some examples of lower body open kinetic chain exercises, like I said before, was a leg extension, which isolates the quadriceps, and that can also be good for, say, for example, hip injuries, knee injuries, things of that sort. Another one is a seated or standing calf raise. Most of the time, if an athlete is injured, you're likely going to do seated, but again, depending on their tissue repair phase, you can do standing as well in order to increase the difficulty and allow for proper rehabilitation and reconditioning. And then some examples of closed kinetic chain exercises for lower body are squats. As I mentioned before, they're more of an overall. They do the glutes, the adductors, the abductors, the quads, the hamstrings. Essentially, most of your lower body muscle group is used in a squat. And the same for a deadlift, the lunges, step ups, leg press. All of those are good examples of closed kinetic chain exercises. And then something else that's mentioned in the chapter is a resistance training program or creating a resistance training program that follows principles of Knight's daily adjustable progressive resistive exercises. And so this design is essentially is a method used for rehabilitation and conditioning to increase resistance of an athlete as they recover. And it's going to be based on percentages and based on the principle of an individualized progression. So essentially monitoring progression and monitoring healing. And so you can easily adjust resistance for every session according to how the athlete does and how the athlete performs. So usually this program consists of 4 different sets. The first step is 10 repetitions at 50% of what is the estimated 1 rep maximum of the athlete. Step 2, 6 repetitions at 75% of the estimated athlete's 1 rep maximum. And then set 3, maximum repetitions at 100% of the estimated working weight. So an adjustment set right there. And then set 4 is the resistance. The resistance is adjusted based on the number of repetitions completed in set 3. So set 3 is kind of considered almost like a test for the athlete. And then from there we can adjust what we believe to be the 1 rep maximum, or adjust, any of the exercises or sets at that point. So usually you can also follow a specific guideline for that third set whenever you're doing your testing as well. So from 1 to 2 reps, or if they can only complete 1 to 2 reps in set 3, you decrease the weight by 5 to 10. 3 to 4 reps, you decrease the weight by 0 to 5%. 5 to 6 reps, you can maintain the same weight. For 7 to 10 reps, you can increase the weight by 5 to 10%. And for 11 or more reps, you can increase the weight by 10 to 15%. So an example of something like this could be, let's say for example, a leg press for lower body rehabilitation, which focuses on the glutes and the quads. So for set 1, would be 10 reps at 50% of an estimated 1 rep max. So let's say that could be 100 pounds. So then this athlete's 1 rep maximum would be 200 pounds. So then set 2 at 6 reps at 75% of estimated 1 rep max would be at 150 pounds. And then from set 3, you would perform as many reps as possible at that 1 rep max, that 200 pounds. And then from there, you can again adjust the weight based on how the athlete performs on that third set. And then to go over the chart in the on page 618, I'm going to be going over alternate exercises for a marathon runner and an Olympic lifter using the rehabilitation phases. So in the inflammatory response phase, for the goals of this phase and for these exercises is to minimize tissue stress, because this is usually between 1 to 2 days of the injury, so it's still a very new injury. It's going to be in a lot of pain, be inflamed, all those things. And also, you don't want to re-injure or worsen the athlete's injury. So for a marathon runner, a good example would be, doing water training. So an example would be doing water aerobics, or something less would be just walking in the pool or doing some type of water walking training. So what the water is going to do is it's going to reduce the weight that the athlete is feeling, and so from there they can walk or even maybe run, depending on how injured the athlete is, but they're going to feel less resistance or less intensity, and so it's going to reduce the impact on their extremities as well. Another example is seated resistance ankle dorsiflexion or plantar flexion. So a big thing for runners is ankle wellness. So it's going to target that ankle mobility and prevent the stiffness in that ankle. So the whole point is that we're going to maintain the aerobic fitness of the athlete while also preventing joint stiffness, because again, we want to maintain or increase that range of motion that they have without being too overbearing on the healing tissues. And then for the Olympic lifter, an example would be passive or assisted range of motion exercises for their shoulder, um, or for their knees. Sorry, doing passive or assisted range of motion exercises, um, or even doing isometric contractions, things like that. Very similar to the marathon trainer. And so again, same thing. We're going to allow the lifter to stay active while also focusing on their joint mobility and muscle activation without um, aggravating any of the healing tissue. This next phase is the fibroblastic repair phase. And so the goal of this phase is to restore range of motion and then begin the strengthening to the area that's injured with light resistance to maintain overall conditioning. So some examples for a marathon runner would be a leg press with light resistance. So we're gonna work on the quadriceps and the glutes um, in order to regain some of the strength back, but also put low joint strain. And then another good one is body weight step ups. They're low intensity because they're your body weight, but they're also very functional for low body strength and stability. And then another good one is doing a single leg balance, and this can be adjusted depending on the difficulty and how the athlete is feeling. So a single leg stance on the ground can be good, but then also to increase difficulty, you can do it on a foam pad, on a Bosu ball, things like that to increase difficulty. And this is going to help again develop the proprioception and stability in that recovering limb joint tissue area. And so we're still in this phase, still trying to avoid anything high impact. So we're trying to recondition, slowly bring back that strength, but avoiding anything high impact. For the Olympic lifter, we could do these ones that I wrote are more so for upper body, are banded overhead press. So you can strengthen your shoulder. Um, so with the bands, it's going to increase or bring that resistance, but it's going to be more controlled than if you were to use a barbell or something similar, which requires a lot more stability, a lot more high impact. Using a band, you're able to control, and also it's good to change the intensity, or it's easier to change the intensity for that athlete. But for more lower body exercises, you can do the same thing. Step ups or even body weight squats are good as well. But it's the same thing. You kind of want to make sure that you're bringing back strength, but also slowly bringing back that balance and stability for the athletes. And then in the maturation and remodeling phase, this is going to be more sports specific and prepare the athlete for hopefully a full return back to their activity. So for a marathon runner, it would be running. So running on the treadmill, maybe even running with incline, doing walking lunges with dumbbells, box jumps, bringing into plyometric training. At this point, we can bring back a little bit more power, a little bit more high impact exercises. So, we want to essentially bring them back almost to normal and make sure that we're prepping them kind of almost like a preseason cycle, similar to like in periodization. We want to make sure that they're fully prepared to return back to their sport. And then for an Olympic lifter, it's having them practice their Olympic lifts. So clean, jerk, snatch, whatever Olympic lift that they're specific towards, but definitely also doing any type of power exercises. So plyometric exercises, box jumps, um, things like that. So yeah, anything just specific to that Olympic lifter. I think cleans and jerks are very important. Definitely start with that. And then if they are involved in the snatch event, then definitely bring the snatch back in. But just making sure that it's not back to where they were before the injury. It should be between a light and moderate load for them. just until they are fully recovered. And so that's all.